Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news where Paul Pogba is apparently subject to a ridiculously huge offer from Manchester United and other clubs, even Aston Villa, Basuma, Arsenal after Vlahovic, clubs, rivals putting Manchester United in the shade at a very, very important time. We'll be talking about that. Fred, also the first Manchester United player to come out and talk about these leaks from the dressing room and lots of other things to talk about as well. Sorry I'm a little bit late tonight, but it is a Friday night show. We're going to get into your questions a bit because that's what we do on a Friday night, a bit of a Q&A. So chill out, relax. It's Friday night. I would never be late on any other night, but Friday night I was just trying to sort some stuff out and I lost track of time. To be honest with you, I was watching Cobra Kai. Anyway, let's go. Welcome to the United Stand. We're going to start off with a story that I probably should have picked up on the morning show, really. So apparently Manchester United are considering offering Paul Pogba £500,000 a week. A huge offer for Paul Pogba, who is expected to be back in training very, very soon, and therefore the pendulum swing of Pogba popularity will be in full force again. I think when he's been injured, nobody's really bothered about Pogba. Sell him. He'll come back, he'll play well for a couple of games, and then people will be saying, give him what he wants. And then he'll start playing inconsistently, and then he'll play well. And I suppose, look, I'm a big fan of Paul Pogba, as everybody knows, but I'm also a realist about Paul Pogba. And I think it's relevant to talk about what rival clubs are looking to do. And you know, I thought Coutinho for Villa is a good deal. It's not a good deal for United. I don't think Coutinho is a good deal for any top four side. But for a team like Aston Villa, Gerrard's played with him. You know, low risk for player and club. It's a good signing. But if Villa go and get Digne and Bissouma, those sort of signings are the sort of signings where I go, hold on a minute, what are we doing? And I do worry about, well, I think we all do. I do worry about Manchester United's vision because I think Specsavers need to help them. I don't believe in the Manchester United vision. Now, I'm more than happy to see what Richard Arnold does as a new CEO. I'm more than happy to see if Ralph Rangnick has an influence on Darren Fletcher and John Murtough. But the reality is, Murtough, Fletcher, Arnold have all been part of the Woodward decision-making process over the last year or 2 years or 3 years in some cases. So why should we expect a massive change when ultimately Ed Woodward wasn't in charge of the club, the Glazers were? I worry about Manchester United's vision. And I definitely think they need an eye test because when a player like Bissouma is being linked to Aston Villa and Rangnick is basically saying he needs a midfielder but he'll probably have to make do with what he's got, I wonder how much longer as a fan base fans are going to be allowing themselves to have the wool pulled over their eyes. I think for years now we've seen other clubs active in the transfer window, as active as we've been, sometimes more active. And we go, well, we're Manchester United. And we do have a very good squad. But that very good squad got smashed by Leicester. It got smashed by Watford. It's a good squad, but they're not Man United players. We need a clear out and we need to bring players in. And when I see other clubs making moves to bring people in like Vlahovic at Arsenal as a striker or Isaac, they're looking at him. You look at Spurs, they're looking to bring Adama Traore in and other players. Villa looking to bring 2 or 3 players in. Newcastle are starting their journey. And I think Manchester United are just living off reputation. It's almost like, well, we don't need to do anything because we're Manchester United, which is the big mistake we've made for 8 years. 8 years ago, Man City were in our shadow. 8 years later, we're very firmly in theirs because we spent 8 years going, we're Manchester United. And it's not going to work anymore because the thing about a name is, it's a name. There are plenty of big brands that thought they were big brands and are not big brands anymore. There are plenty of car manufacturers that were epic when I was growing up and don't exist now. And Manchester United are hurtling towards this situation whereby, all right, you're always going to make money as a brand and maybe that's what they want. But as a football club, we're inactive. You can't watch Villa buy Bissouma. You can't watch Newcastle buy Kamara. You can't watch other clubs in the Premier League buy players in positions that you need and go, we're Manchester United, we'll be all right with McTominay and Fred. Like, we've got to start being active. And I don't know whether we have that vision to do that. Ralph, collective and individual, Rangnick should do something about Pogba offer. He's a symptom of the disease that Ed Woodward is leaving, says Pranav. Well, I want to come back to Pogba. Welcome to the Members Club, Sean Finnerty. And looking good, Mark. Great shirt, mate. Thank you. I do quite like to wear a an olive green sort of top, and I don't normally get to wear it because of the green screen, but this one doesn't actually clash, so I quite like it. Looking good, thank you very much. Yeah, let's offer an injury-prone, inconsistent midfielder who goes on about leaving at least once a year, $500,000 a week. Great idea, lad, says Joshua Bellwater. No, I was hoping the offer is from another club to buy Pogba. I don't see light at the end of the tunnel, Mark. Pogba is one of those that need to go, says Rick. And Rangnick has recalled Dylan Levitt from a loan at Dundee United, apparently. Do you know why? Says Dan. No, I doubt he's going to have a future at Manchester United, to be honest, in the immediate future. And Mark, can we please not talk about wanting to buy Basuna when he's still on bail until January 27th with possible sexual assault, says Karamu. But look, that's your decision, Karamu. You know, at the end of the day, innocent until proven guilty. And like, I don't know what's going to happen in that case, but he's innocent until proven guilty. And I think United might have an insight into that. United aren't looking at it, are they? Let's be honest. We're happy being Blockbuster while the rest of the league become Netflix, Hulu and Disney+. I like that from Gabriel Noel. Bringing it back to Pogba, though. So let's talk about this. Now, look, I'll be honest. The story originates in The Sun. And it's not from Neil Custis. So I don't put a lot of weight on this. But what we do know is that there is a contract on the table for Paul Pogba to sign, and we know this from numerous credible outlets, including people like Fabrizio Romano. That is rumoured to be £400,000 a week. I mean, look, spade to spade. You know, I want to get into your questions tonight, so I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't offer Pogba this contract. No, I wouldn't. I like Pogba. I really do like Pogba. I'm not one of those people who are like, get out of our club, Pogba, you're inconsistent. You know, some people do it because he's not English, this, that and the other, whatever. I'm not interested in that. I've always liked Pogba. I think he had the attributes to be a lot better than he is. He's one of the few midfielders, centre midfielders in world football that can actually dribble, and he doesn't do it enough. Passing range, fantastic. Shooting, fantastic. Physicality, just didn't really, in a United shirt, fulfil the talent that I thought he was. But on his days, he's unplayable. I really like Paul Pogba. But at 29 years of age and 6 years of, let's be honest, inconsistency, explain to me the business logic, the football logic, sorry, not the business logic, the football logic of paying a player that's been inconsistent for 6 years, been, I'm trying to think of a word here that's constructive, disruptive in 6 years because of his agents. And look, it's not, people can say it's not Pogba's fault, get a new agent then. Like, his agent is disruptive. 4 or 5 times, probably more, we've heard he wants to leave over the last 6 years. So he's been disruptive, he's been inconsistent, and we think that after 6 years of that, and at 29 years of age, when he clearly wants to go somewhere else but would only stay if no one else wants him, we think it's a good idea to put a 4 or 5 year contract on the table for 400, 500 grand a week. It makes me want to cry. And I like Pogba, but there is absolutely no footballing logic to this. And when you see Arsenal on the rise, Spurs on the rise, Man City becoming stronger, Liverpool consistently good, Chelsea with a massive squad and the ability to keep evolving, and even teams like Aston Villa buying, going for players to make them better, and Newcastle on the rise. Also, why does it? What's to be excited for United fans if we blow a huge amount of our budget on keeping a player that's not been able to do it over the last 6 years? And that, to me, is probably the biggest reason why I would let Pogba go. Because he's been here 6 years. And he's not had a massive impact on anything, apart from a Europa League final. And he's 29. So he's not here for the future. He's inconsistent. And we're going to blow a huge amount of money on him just so he doesn't walk out the door for nothing. I just think United are backing themselves into a corner here. I wouldn't be surprised if we gave Pogba and Lingard a new contract just so they don't walk out the door for nothing. It's the sort of arse-covering cowardice that United have become notorious for in relation to bad negotiation skills. But I like Pogba, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't begrudge him, to be honest, going to Real Madrid and revitalising his club career. But at Manchester United, I just think it would be one of the stupidest things in the world, which is probably why we'll do it. Currently, we're working with the B team, and most importantly of all for me, we need to turn a page. We don't turn a page with Paul Pogba. We'll get the next 3 years will be the same as the last 6 years. Inconsistency, not quite good enough. Brilliant player, but not the right deal, and certainly not at that price. Currently, we are working with a B team and a C team in order for United to become better. Needs to offload and bring some talent that wants to be here, says Apollo 3X. Man United have an ego based on their history. City are club fans say have no history, have begun their dynasty, but not focusing on the past but the future, says Marcelino. Because he has 51 million Instagram followers, well, yes, Trim, there's probably a business case for keeping Pogba and Lingard. Social Media FC. Riola, this club is a joke club. We want to offer 400. Paul offer 400k a week. Snake. Yeah, well, I said this maybe 8 months ago. Mino Riola's more powerful than Manchester United. How we've allowed that to happen, I don't know, but he is. 40th birthday today. Smashing content, mate. Can always count on a laugh in a depressing time of being a United supporter. Cheers, says United Red Army Jimbo. Well, apart from feeling completely run down, struggling with my throat and having a bad headache, it's been a good day. I mean, the United Stand FC are an FA Cup final against Man United. If you know, you know. I can't wait for Monday. Hi, Mark. Just got here. What have I missed? Says Charlie Griffiths. And I must be getting old. I remember players playing for the love of the club and the shirt, says Rob Quince. And it's my birthday today, Mark. Cheers to TUSM fam, says Sagar. Well, happy birthday to Sagar. And also happy birthday to United Red Army Jimbo. We're going to get into some of your questions. Just going back to Charlie, we're just talking about this huge offer on the table for Paul Pogba. Rumoured to be up to £500,000 a week. I think it's ridiculous. And the great thing about this is, I saw somebody on Twitter over Christmas saying that Goldbridge is the biggest reason why United's fan base is so toxic because he influences everybody. And I was laughing my head off because if you watch this channel and you've watched it for any period of time, my favourite shows, and we had one over Christmas, was where there was loads of disagreement and loads of good debate. I love it. I love the Robert McCormacks and the Sean Turners and the rest of you who offer up something different and we get into a bit of debate. I absolutely love the different opinion because it gets me on my toes and I think it gets you on your toes. So I like the Pogba story because it's true. He is out of contract. We have got a massive offer on the table and we don't know what's going to happen. And there will be an outcome. He'll either sign the contract or he will go. So it's not speculative. It's not like saying, let's buy Erling Haaland because, that probably won't happen. But what I like about the Pogba thing, and I don't necessarily like all of it, but what I do like about the Pogba thing is it's just a boiling pot of opinion. I like Paul Pogba the player. I really like Paul Pogba the player. I think some people just don't like Paul Pogba and don't want to give him any credit. I like the player. I don't like the agent. I don't like the baggage. I don't like the disruption. And I haven't really enjoyed 6 years of inconsistency, for which I think there are reasons that are his fault and there are also bigger reasons why it's the club's fault. And he never should have been allowed to run his contract down, and that is the club's fault. But I feel that, when you have a divorce, sometimes you don't like each other. You get a divorce and you slag each other off for the rest of your life and you hate each other. Sometimes you get a divorce and you go, you know what, it just didn't work. Let's go and enjoy our lives. And I think that's how I feel about Paul Pogba. This just hasn't worked out. And I think there should be a parting of the ways. And I actually would say this. What worries me the most is, as much as I like Paul Pogba, if we keep him on this contract, it'll be the biggest mistake we've made since the last biggest mistake, which was Alexis Sanchez. I would liken this to giving Alexis Sanchez 450 grand a week. Giving Paul Pogba the same, it will absolutely come back and bite us on the arse. And I really wish the club wasn't so arrogant that it did listen to fans, because I think in the world of football, you might not have a degree in banking, you might not have worked for JP Morgan, but if you've analysed football and watched it for most of your life, your business brain will be better than people like Ed Woodward, because football business is not the same as banking business. And I've worked in banking and stuff like that. Football business, you need to understand football, because how can you understand the value of a player if you don't understand football? You know what I mean? Like, if you said to Ed Woodward, how much is Basuma worth? And he goes, well, I think he's not worth any more than £10 million because I've put it into my algorithm. I've played a bit of Football Manager and we shouldn't get him for any more than 10 million. And I've looked on Transfer Market. And I would say to him, well, Transfer Market may well have Basuma down as 10 million, but Transfer Market's never accurate, mate. Have you watched him play? No. Yeah, but this is the problem. I have. I would rank Basuma with 2 years left on his contract somewhere between 30 and 45 million pounds. Well, we're never playing that. And this is the problem. Football business, you've got to understand football. And unfortunately, United's business people don't understand football, and this is why we always end up getting in a mess. And that's not just about recruitment, it's also about retention. And that is why there will be a contract on the table for Paul Pogba, which is ridiculous to football fans, but to them, they'll be going, well, look at it. He's got all these followers. He's massively popular. marketing, this, that and the other. Look at it, look at what he's worth on transfer market. So it worries me. As I say, I don't trust United's vision. I don't think it's a very good one. I hope it will change, but we need to clear out, as we know. As a Pogba renewal, a confidence booster for Ralph if he does renew, and does Pogba believe in his strategy, says Casper. Well, he's not going to renew until the summer anyway, so it may not have anything to do with Ralph. But, I do feel bad saying this, but the biggest reason I don't want Pogba to stay, and it's not because I don't rate him, because I do, I just think sometimes you've done enough laps, you're not going to get any quicker, and I think we've done enough laps with Pogba. It's time to get a new car. And I think Pogba is going to be so expensive. And you know what? The biggest thing of all really is, if we keep Pogba and Arsenal get 2 or 3 good players, and Villa get 2 or 3 good players, and Spurs get 2 or 3 good players, and Chelsea get 2 or 3 players, but we keep Pogba because that's our big investment, we already know what we are with Pogba. We're not a team that can win a title. So everyone else improves, but we stand still. And that's, for me, why contract renewals should always be done like Man City do. De Bruyne will sign a 5-year deal when he's got 2 years left. Same with, used to be the same with Aguero. Your contract renewals should be yesterday's news as soon as it hits the papers. It shouldn't be a big thing. United are turning a contract renewal into like a new signing, but they're not. Contract renewals are not actually that important because you've already got the player. It's just about keeping the player or selling the player. And we could be sold a couple of big red herrings in the summer where we renew contracts of players and make it out to be absolutely big. Wow, we've kept Pogba on a contract. We've kept Lingard on a contract. But if the board had done its job and renewed them 2 years ago, it wouldn't even been big news 2 years ago. So we could get sold a couple of those in the summer. Let him go and clear the rest of the locker room of players not wanting to be here. Bring players in that want to fight for their place and the badge, says Ivan. United used to buy players to win trophies, now they're bought to boost publicity and stock shares, says De Botherer. As an outsider, you're not afraid of City catching you up in Premier League titles. This will be their 6th, says Connor. Well, 14 years away. It's not going to happen for about another 20 years, is it? Long live the United stand. Keep doing what we're doing. These players should have decreasing wages for not getting trophies or league titles, says Nigel Green. And people have died for this club, says Andy Cheetham. They played for the love of the club, for the badge. I would clear out half the team and bring in the kids who want it, says Andy. And bankers caused the financial collapse and got profits and bonuses. The more they fail, the more they earn, says Red Baron. Well, just talking about the players, actually, I will just read you these quotes because we have... Oh, can I just say as well, I've got a new video out on my channel for the new year. It's my first one of the new year. It's called What Next? It's plans for 2022. Most of it's quite personal because it's my personal channel, but it does, if you are a United Stand viewer and you are interested in the United Stand, I do talk about what the plan for the United Stand is this year. Some quite big stuff in there, so please check it out. The link's in the video description. And make sure you subscribe to my personal channel. South African Airways had a CEA that knew nothing about aviation. The company went bankrupt. A manager needs to know what they are managing, says Mr. Nobody. Well, look, we've not really had anything from any United player this week, but we've heard loads and loads of leaks. Fred's come out on Twitter 5 hours ago and said this. Over the past few days, I've read several fake news involving my name and other Man United athletes. I'm not in the habit of answering controversial stuff publicly, but this time I'll have to. I just want to say that I'm very happy and I've never expressed any dissatisfaction and the possibility of leaving this club. Don't get misled by fake news. We will continue to work with great dedication to pursue our goals. Two sides. First of all, fair play to Fred for coming it out. I don't think I've ever named Fred as a player that would be moaning in the dressing room or wanting to leave. I would never think Fred would want to moan in the dressing room or want to leave. This is a player that's played way too many games for our club when he's been very average at best. You could say worse than that. I think he probably wakes up with the biggest smile in the world. You know, Fred's played a lot of football for this club. A lot of the time he hasn't deserved to. So I don't think for 1 minute Fred would be disruptive in the dressing room when he's living the dream. So I don't know why Fred's come out and said that. The only issue I would take with what he said there is, and I don't mind Fred. I've always felt there's a player in Fred, but he has annoyed me recently because he's been crap all season. He puts in a man of the match performance against Palace and then disappears in the next 2 games against Newcastle and Norwich, who are the 2 worst teams in the Premier League. So Fred's inconsistency pisses me off, but I don't think for 1 minute he would be moaning. Why would you moan when you're getting more game time than you deserve anyway? So I don't think Fred for 1 minute was ever mentioned. I don't think any of you ever mentioned Fred. So I don't know who mentioned Fred as disruptive, because I've never heard anything about Fred. So I don't know why or who said that. The second thing I would say is that he references twice there several fake news involving my name and other Man United athletes. Well, that's not true, Fred, I'm afraid. You can't say several fake news stories about yourself and others. You can say it about yourself, but they're not fake news stories about other Man United athletes, because maybe he doesn't grasp the English that well because he's missed a word out anyway. But when you say fake stories about Fred and other Man United athletes, well, other Man United athletes means the rest of the squad. Well, it's not fake, because there are people in the rest of the squad who have been putting shit out there and causing problems. And Ralph Rangnick basically admitted it in a clever way today. So, look, I don't think Fred needs to come out and say anything, because I don't think many people think anything bad of Fred apart from his performances on the pitch. I think it'd be foolish to think Fred was involved in leaks or unhappiness, because why would he be unhappy? But he can't really say that they're fake stories about others, because we know for a fact that people are leaking stuff to the press. You had MUFC this afternoon, Manchester United's own TV channel, slagging off the players for their behaviour. So, look, we all want to believe something. The reality is, unfortunately, you can try and pretend it's not true, but some players have behaved very badly this week. We're having burden paying big wages to players who aren't even playing first team football much, and they want to do those exorbitant spending again, says Hem. Sean Turner says, I'm going to disagree with you. I'd offer Pogba a new contract, not 500k, but only if we buy a world-class CDM. Then you get a completely new Pogba. Sean, I don't disagree with you on that one. I think that, if you're telling me Pogba's going to stay, but we're going to get Tchouaméni, well, I like the idea of that. But I ultimately, and you'd probably agree with me on this, I think if we keep Pogba, that's most of the budget's going to be gone. Glazers take 11 million out of our club, yet we as a club need players who want to play for United. We need a CDM. Fred's statement sounds like the club wrote it, says Andy and Bruno. Look, maybe. Well, look, it's a Friday night Q&A, so now is the time we can go anywhere. I don't understand what's going on at Manchester United in a political sense. Obviously, the fan forum's been expanded. There's talk of shares. There was major protest last May. The fan base came together fantastically well. We've got, for me, we've got the best fans in the world, the best match-going fans in the world. They're amazing. But I don't know where the leadership in the fan base is at the moment. Like, I don't understand how actually. I don't understand how the Glazers rode that storm so easily. They looked like they were finished in May. And 6 months later, they're taking £11 million out the club in January, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're doing it again." I just don't understand. We're so fragmented. I suppose we've gone back to being divided as a fan base again, haven't we? There's no leadership. I don't know what is going on with the supporters' trust, or whether they're just in bed with the club and working on stuff, or whether there actually is any real progress being made. I don't know. It doesn't please me when I see 11 million quid coming out of the club, to be fair. The Mail are saying that a spokesman for Paul Pogba has dismissed claims that he's received a new £500,000 a week contract offer from Manchester United. Well, whether it's £500,000 a week or Paul Pogba spokesman, actually, it's just come out. To clarify, media reports, Paul has not been offered a new contract in recent months. Paul is fully focused on his recovery from injury with the aim of helping the team as soon as possible. So there you go. It looks like they've come out and denied. Well, yeah, it looks like they've come out and denied that. What do you think United can actually do this year, says Scott? But. Let's look at that statement. There's not been a new offer on the table. we know from Romano that there has been an offer on the table since the summer, which is rumoured to be around £400,000 a week. So maybe Man United haven't pushed up to £500,000 a week, but maybe that, play the game, people. Just play the game. Play the game with me for a minute, right? Because I know how this works and you know how this works. News outlet in the morning says Pogba £500,000 a week offer. We know on the table there's a £400,000 a week offer. £500,000 a week offer there. On the evening, Paul Pogba spokesman, we haven't had an offer. There's been no new offer in the last few months. How do you interpret that? I'll tell you how I interpret that. Offer on the table for £400,000 a week. Pogba's not signed it. News story in the morning about £500,000 a week. Spokesman comes out and says we've not had a new offer for months. You know what I think that is? Make us a new offer. I think that's I interpret that as that offer's been on the table for ages. We're not going to sign it. Make us a new offer. I don't know whether your brains work like that. I presume it does. But that, for me, whenever anything speaks as a spokesman or whenever there's a story in the press, I always look at who might have put it there and who's going to benefit it from it. So if you've got Alvarez, who's not coming to United and never was, if you've got stories in South America about him coming to Manchester United, you know that's going to hit the UK and give him a load of exposure and get people thinking about Alvarez. The logical thing is that his agents put that out there to generate interest in him, to get him a move to Europe. So that's the story. I missed yesterday's show. What's up with Woodward and CEA? He's gone, Ash. Simple as. But look, we'll see what happens with Paul Pogba. That's never going to get resolved until the summer anyway, but it's interesting. But I want to get into your questions. It's been such a mad week this week. Let's get into a bit of a Q&A. Get your questions in about what you want to talk about. The thing I wanted to come back to just for a moment was to say I'm worried about Manchester United. I mean, it's been a really tough week. It's been an embarrassing week. It's not often that you get so many people saying the same thing. Joshua says he's tired of the club. City are going to dominate for years. Again, I don't think that's sensationalist to say that, but it's quite sobering when you get so many people. I mean, Lou Macari on MUTV today basically saying what you're all saying, what I've been saying, what everybody's been saying. Sell these cretins. Get rid of these, this disease within the football club, because they're dragging us down. And that's what needs to happen. It does need to happen. But what worries me is that you've got Ralph Rangnick clearly saying today in his press conference that he wants a midfielder, but he's probably not going to get one. And then all I'm hearing constantly every time I go on social media is that teams are really hungry. It's only the 7th of January and teams are really hungry. You expect a bit of hunger in the transfer window, January transfer window, in the last week or two. Teams are really hungry. I think quite rightly, Arsenal are looking at this and going, we had no chance of top 4 at the start of the season. We're now in 4th. If we spend a bit of money, we can keep 4th and we're in the Champions League next year, and that's another 50 million quid anyway. They're hungry. I think Spurs are hungry. Villa are looking at it and going, you know what, we could finish in the top 8. Let's go for it. And the scary thing about Villa is, and the scary thing about Spurs is, both Conte didn't want the Spurs job in the summer. He said no. Why does he want the job now? Because Daniel Levy said, please come and take the job and we'll give you a transfer budget. Villa getting Gerrard out of Rangers was a difficult job. He enjoyed the Rangers job. Why did he go? Come to Villa, we'll give you a load of money to spend as well. Arteta's probably going to get money to spend. So that's 3 clubs. We're talking about battling for 4th. I think we're in danger in the next 6 months to be putting ourselves in a situation where we might be battling for 7th or 8th. Because Villa have already beaten us this season. We've got them twice to come. If we play anything like we did against Wolves, they'll beat us. And they're also looking to buy better players. I think I'm genuinely worried, and I know I don't want to be right on this. I really don't. Some things I want to be right on. Buying Bruno will revolutionise this team, and it did. I think we're in a really bad situation at the moment, and I think if we don't buy anybody in January, we might find ourselves in the summer in an even worse position than we are now. Because you look at the carnage that's going to happen in the summer if we're in the Europa League, and it's not worth thinking about. United have got a chance of stopping that nightmare. But it's whether their eyes are open up to it. You know, there are people in our fan base that when I say we could be in the worst position we've ever been in the summer, and they'll go, "Oh, you're being stupid. We've got good players. We'll be in the top 4." You know, if the club are being like that and they're not seeing the danger, I'm really worried. Mark, I agree. New offer, one-way ticket to Juve, says Andy Cheetham. What do you think about reports saying Ronaldo is considering leaving, depending on who is the next manager and how in up he is with Rangnick? Victor, I'm glad you mentioned Ronaldo. I've never heard such horseshit in all my life. Unfortunately, I have to file this in the typical blame the foreigner drawer. It amazes me. It absolutely amazes me. I read something today and I can't remember who said it, so I would shout them out. And they basically said if you went back to 2009 and told the United fan base that in 11, 12 years' time, Ronaldo would be at the club and being slagged off by his own fans, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. I cannot understand for the life of me. I understand why the mainstream media does it, and I understand why some ex-players do it, because they're bitter. But I cannot understand why Manchester United fans are turning on Cristiano Ronaldo, because there's no evidence to do it. There's no evidence to do it at all. He's one of the only bright sparks in this season. And look, he's not been that good, but there has been bright sparks. He's playing in a position where he's not getting any service, so it's hard to judge his game. He clearly is working hard in every game. And his career is so easily followed and evidenced. And he is not a player that in January starts getting onto his agent or the club he's at saying, I want to leave. He doesn't do that. And it's probably why he's one of the greatest players that's ever played the game. Because he's so focused in season. Like, in season time, he is focused. You know, people have asked him about Portugal not qualifying for the World Cup. And there's a very big chance they won't. But he's not talking about it. He's like, I'm focused on the World Cup and getting there with Portugal. And that's the mindset. It's not my mindset. It's not your mindset. He's one of the greatest winners the game has ever had. He's a focused player. He won't be thinking about leaving United, telling his agent to start talking about leaving United, telling Man United he's going to leave if they don't get the right manager in. He won't be doing that. He'll be focused on United, winning games, scoring goals between now and May. And if you believe anything else, then I don't know what angle you're coming from, but it's certainly not reality, because that's just not how Ronaldo works. I have seen the stories, and they're bullshit. If we get knocked out in the cup by Villa on Monday, we'll be horrendous. I'm not looking forward to Villa with Gerard Coutinho bounce, says Dan. I expect Man United to beat Villa on Monday night. I'm more worried about the league game because we need to win. I'm more worried about the Villa Park bounce. Villa Park can be a horrible place to go when it's bouncing. Out of 10, how likely do you think Rangnick will really make an impact on the team and use more of the squad this season, says Lil. It's interesting the way you word that, because I actually think Rangnick's own, and it doesn't mean he's going to do it, and I'm interested to see what you think about this. I actually think from this point, after the week he's just had, including the Wolves result and the mutiny in that squad, I think his only option is to make major changes. Now the problem is I don't know the players who are causing the mutiny, and he won't, or sorry, he should. But De Gea and Ronaldo apart, and I would say Bruno as well, because look, you can dislike Bruno all you like, but when he came on against Wolves, we started creating chances. So if you haven't figured it out yet, yes, he can be quite wasteful, but look at Man United's creativity with Bruno on the pitch and not on the pitch. So to me, Bruno, Ronaldo and De Gea are absolutely essential in anything you're going to do. You've got to play those three. But apart from that, whoever the villains are, you don't play them. So I don't know who the villains are, but I think he needs to make changes. And the changes for me would be, obviously Lindelof's an option to come in and play with Varane. You know, the fullbacks, you've got options there, Telles and Dalot. You can change them if you want to. In the midfield, I think you've got to be looking at Van der Beek. Obviously, Pogba will be coming back. Lingard could be utilised as well. You know, he has got Alanga. I think he's got to make. I think he has to make changes, and in making those changes and taking those players out of the team that need to be taught a lesson, you hope that the players that are given the chance take the chance, and the players who are taught the lesson Learn from it. The worst thing Rangnick can do, in my mind, is keep picking the players that are the problem and ignoring the players who are hungry for a chance, because you'll have the same problem as you did against Wolves. I think he's got to make changes, but that doesn't mean he will. And by changes, I mean we've got to start seeing a very different United side to what we've seen this season. I know this is probably impossible to answer, but how many years until we start competing for the title? I don't see it anytime soon, says Ivan. The most asked question, probably of the last 6 years, when will United win a title again? I'll just pluck it out my arse, because it would be talking shit if I gave you a date. The reality is, well, I said it this morning. If it takes you 2 years to build Old Trafford in Lego, and somebody breaks it, how long is it going to take you to build it again? You might do it a little bit quicker if you remember how you did it last time, but it's still going to take you nearly 2 years. So I look at it like a mountain or a pit. A pit. I tell you what, I look at it like an elevator going down. Every floor we go down, we've got to go past to go back up again. And I still think the elevator's going down. So I think with 3 years. I think basically the last manager, we might be 4.5 years. I think the last year of Mourinho was where it went wrong. Arguably a year and a half of Mourinho. I think Mourinho's peak was the Europa League, and I think after that it started to go wrong. And I don't think Ollie's 3 years really added anything anyway. So 4.5 years, and that's the most important thing is, and that's if we from the day we start getting it right, is how long it will be. So if we started getting it right from today, I'd say 4.5 years away from competing at the top level, which is quite a long time, isn't it? It takes you into nearly 15 years without a title. The only problem with Ronaldo at United is other players haven't raised their game to get the best out of him, says D. Botherer. Yeah, well, we've always known there's a bit of a skill gap, overinflated players who think they're better than they are. Club claims to be a big business, but the board epitomizes penny wise and pound foolish. 9 years saw the decline into mid-table, so relegation by 2030, says Wang. Is it right to bring a new player into this mess with other players, says Reber. He will probably be allowed to make changes in the FA Cup to send a message, and then it'll be business as usual in the league. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? I wish it was a league game on Monday, threefold path. Ralph needs to be an arse in the best sense, but he needs to do it tactically at this club like he did, says Ash. And millions would give anything to be wearing that shirt and playing in the theatre of dreams. How is it possible to not be happy in their position, says Dan. Just tuned in, but Pogba shouldn't be given this contract. He's a good baller, but not a player for Man United. Too much drama, says D. Mark, I think we need to be out of these competitions to really build back the club. It's gone, says Ja. There's something just resonated with me there about relegation. And I would always say it's impossible for Manchester United to get relegated. And I would still say that. But I don't think it's impossible for United to finish 8th. I mean, Arsenal did that 2 years in a row. And 8th is bloody abysmal. I don't think it's impossible for United to finish 8th. And then if you finish 8th and you don't improve, it's not impossible to finish 12th the next year. So I don't think United can be relegated, but I think when you're finishing 8th and 9th and 10th and 11th as a club like Man United, it's utterly humiliating. And people will say, well, no, that shouldn't happen. But we've seen this before. Leeds got relegated. If you spend money on the wrong players and the wrong personalities, and then you can't get rid of those personalities, you're stuck with those personalities. Now, I don't like using this player, but if you look at Harry Maguire, imagine he never improves and he's not a United defender. You've got a player on 200 grand a week, £80 million spent on him, only been here 2.5 years. That's a massive amount of money to write off and get rid of. You're almost forced to just keep using him because of the wages, because of how much you spent on him. And if he never improves and stays being mediocre, then your team's going to stay mediocre. And that's what scares me. And Harry's an example, but there's plenty of others. If we can't offload these players because nobody will want them and they're not the right character and they're just going to hang around, we're not going to improve. The sort of clear out and reset United need will not be sanctioned by the Glazers. So I'm very worried about our future because what we're actually asking for is magic. We're asking for Ralf Rangnick to produce magic, to turn these players who we already know can't be trusted, whose personalities are very, very dubious, in relation to commitment and consistency, you're asking him to turn them into superstar players who are consistent. I don't think that's possible. But on the other hand, I don't think we're going to remove these players and, you know, do the rebuild that's required, because I think it's almost, you know what, to be fair to the club, it's almost impossible. How are you going to get rid of 6, 7, 8, 9 players who are you've paid ridiculous money for, who are on ridiculous wages that nobody wants? And would the club even want to do it anyway? I honestly believe no one wants Pogba. Real Madrid said no, and even on a free, I can't see who can afford his wages. Maybe PSG. We're back on Pogba. I would be absolutely stunned if nobody goes for Paul Pogba. I agree with you if he's under contract and he wants to go. I think Raiola would find it very difficult to find somebody to pay Manchester United 50 million quid and pay Paul Pogba 400 grand a week. I think that'd be very, very difficult. But Paul Pogba on a free, I can't not think that there won't be a queue. To be honest with you, if I was in charge of Chelsea or Juventus or Bayern Munich or Barcelona or Real Madrid or PSG, I would be picking up the phone in the summer for Paul Pogba. I rate him. I think he's a good player. I think he's got a lot to prove. I think he has to leave United. I think it has to be over at United for the player and the club and the fans. It has to. We need a clean break, all of us. Same as Lingard. Lingard's an Aldi version. If I'm West Ham, Everton, Leicester, I'm on the phone to get Lingard for free, because he will definitely add something to our squad. But it's definitely time for him to leave United, for him, for us, for the fans. Pogba's on a different level. Obviously, he's a much better player. But if you are a PSG or a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid, you can say no, you don't want Paul Pogba, but you're not paying any transfer fee. So that's... Even if you were getting Pogba on the cheap, he's still worth 30, 40 million quid. So that 30, 40 million quid, you don't even need to spend half of that to pay him the wages that he wants. What's £500,000 a week? 2 million a month? So what's that? 2 million a month? Actually, it is a lot of money, isn't it? It's £24 million a year. So yeah, he's going to cost you a lot in wages, but he's going to cost you a lot in wages anyway. So, you know, if you paid £50 million for Paul Pogba, you're still going to end up paying him around 20 million a year in wages anyway. So his wages are not going to be a massive problem, and you're getting him for free. Bit of agent fee, of course. So I think there'll be plenty of people queuing up for Pogba. I wouldn't believe that there's not. Maybe if they had to pay 40 million, then no. Maguire isn't mediocre, Mark. He's been utter trash. I can't think of a single great performance by him. I swear Championship players would do better. And Jonathan, Leicester City are a perfect example of a seriously run football club, always improving and building with a top-down vision for the club's future. Mate, I would love Leicester's owners to run Manchester United. I really would. But I'd probably love Brighton's to run Manchester United as well. So, yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I mean, just on Harry, we're having a bit of a Q&A. I don't think for 1 minute that if Harry Maguire was not captain of Manchester United and we had Varane, Lindelof, Bay and Maguire on a fair playing field, I don't think Harry Maguire would actually get picked anywhere near as much as he does, because I don't think he's much better than Lindelof or Bay. So I think the fact that he cost us 80 million and he's the captain just gives him that leap over those two. I think if it was a level playing field and he wasn't captain and we hadn't spent 80 million pounds on him, well, imagine if Harry Maguire was 28 and he'd come through the youth setup. You know, same player, but he's come through the youth setup. I don't think he'd be playing ahead of Lindelof and Bay. On pure footballing ability, I don't think he's massively worse, but I don't think he's massively better either. Somebody just told me to check something on Twitter, but I can't see anything that's new or breaking. I'm just having a quick look now. No, I can't see anything. It's fine. It's fine. Let's have a look what people are saying in the chat then. Dun, dun, Oh, people are just talking about these spokesmen. As I said, Paul Pogba's spokesman has come out and said that he's not been offered a new contract. But as I said, the way I would read that is that we get a story this morning about 500k. You then get a spokesman coming out saying he's not been that's not true. He's not been given a new offer in months. I think what they're trying to do is get a new offer. I think that's what that's all about. And I think we're going to see a lot more stories about Paul Pogba. I'm surprised we haven't had enough, but maybe that's because he's injured. I think we'll see a lot more stories about Paul Pogba. Mino Raiola is very easy to read because he's been doing it for years. There'll be a lot of stories about Paul Pogba as soon as he comes back. So look at some of your questions. Maguire ain't better than Axel and he's been shown the door, says 20. Well, no, I think Harry Maguire's a good player, but I don't think he's head and shoulders above Bailly and Lindelof. I actually feel, I don't know about you, sometimes people say if you combine Wan-Bissaka with Trent Alexander-Arnold, you'd have the best right back in the world, and I can see what they mean. I actually think if you combined Harry Maguire with Eric Bailly and Lindelof, you'd have a really good centre-back. You'd have Rafael Varane. Is Rafael Varane not a... Actually, that's a good point, isn't it? What happens when you combine Eric Bailly with Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire? You get Rafael Varane. You get somebody who's good in the air, quick, good on the ball, and good positional sense. So, yeah. I think they all have... I mean, I've always said Harry Maguire's ability to win a header from a corner is world class. I can't believe how many he wins. Unfortunately, he can't direct it, but he's amazing at winning headers. It's so clear who's behind this. It's the players who got a free ride under Ollie and know that they're in jeopardy when Ralph goes upstairs. They're literally incentivised to throw him under the bus, says Sahil. Interesting assessment there. John makes a good point about Pogba. You're living in a dreamland, Mark. Who's going to pay him £500,000 a week when he only plays half a season? Wow. You know what? You make a really good point there. What? I mean, look, we're the ones with the bloody knowledge as well. We know he's always injured. Well, I say injured. I think Paul Pogba for the last 4 years has missed... I mean, somebody will have this accurately. But I think over the last 4 years, if you add up all his injuries, he's missed at least 3 months every year. That's a lot. So why United are in possession of these facts and we're going to pay him ridiculous money. But you're right, another club might go, we don't want to do that. But then you're still getting a massive bargain as another club. So I still think they'll look at him. I am the truth. Welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Mark, are the Deadwood we got rid better than what we have today? Is Maguire better than Smalling? Honestly, is McFred better than Fellaini and Herrera? Honestly, Fellaini and Herrera are on a... And I was never a big fan of Fellaini. You know I wasn't, but I was a big fan of Herrera. Herrera and Fellaini are on a different level to McTominay and Fred. Fellaini was a starter for Belgium and Herrera was very technically good with a great engine. Fellaini and Herrera against McTominay and Fred, if you put them at the same age, Herrera and Fellaini would wipe the floor with them. So, yeah, we have downgraded there, definitely, even though I wasn't a fan of Fellaini. As for Maguire versus Smalling, it's close. You know, in all honesty, it's close. I didn't think I'd ever say that. I remember Ricky saying the summer we sold Smalling, he'd come back on loan from Roma and it looked like he was going to stay. And Ricky said, we're letting go of our best centre-back. And I thought it was quite... I always quite liked Smalling. I did always quite like Smalling. But I did feel when we bought Harry Maguire, we were getting a better centre-back than Smalling. But actually, I think our scouts made a big mistake. I can't scout Harry Maguire. I'll admit, before we bought Harry Maguire, I'd probably only seen him play at most 10 games a season. You know, if you think about some England games, a handful of Leicester games. I can't believe that at Leicester he was on a different level to what he is at Manchester United. You know, he'd still not have recovery pace. His positional sense would surely still be dubious. I don't think there's a world of difference between Smalling and Harry Maguire. Mark, this week was the hard reset. The fans back Ralph and the players will see this. They'll back down and the season starts now. We'll smash Villa. I think that's a really positive statement by Nick, and hopefully you're going to be right because your statement's 100% right. The players, no matter what was said and who said it, they've all taken a battering. Now, you might be Scott McTominay, who's not done anything, but you'll still be looking at it going, fucking hell, we've had a right battering here. Or you might be, who's been a big part of it, and you're going, shit, I better wind my neck in. So you're right, Nick. There is definitely a strong message to the players that you can moan, you can leak, but you've lost. And Ralph Rangnick might fail, but if we lose against Villa, and we lose against Villa next Saturday, it'll be the players who are getting the shit. Because the general consensus above the United fans at the moment is that the players are downing tools. And your tactics might be wrong, but it's very hard to shift the players are downing tools. And it will be the players who get the blame from now on. So the players will be very aware about that, like Nick says. So hopefully this is going to be the hard reset that we want. And it's a massive opportunity for whoever plays on Monday. Because, all right, it's the FA Cup game and he will make changes. And we're going to do the preview tomorrow afternoon at 2. But if he plays Donny van der Beek and Donny van der Beek plays well, we were so shit against Wolves, there'd be outrage if he doesn't start at Villa Park. Maybe Lingard gets an opportunity as well. So, but I think the FA Cup's very important as well. I mean, I don't want to go into the preview, but I think the FA Cup's very important as well. I don't think you can start playing Donny and Lingard and Elanga and resting Ronaldo and Bruno. The FA Cup could be... this is the longest period of time without winning a trophy since us winning the FA Cup in 1985 and winning it again in 1990. 5 years without a trophy. So this is getting bad. We need to win a trophy. Evans and Smalling are both better than Maguire, says Arjun. Johnny Evans better than Harry Maguire. God, I'm not, let's not do that. Because somebody will start saying Tyler Blackett's better than Harry Maguire, and that will just make me cry. If McTominay was 5'9", he would be in the Championship. Martial will consistently score more goals for his next club than Rashford does for United, says D. Botherer. Yeah, well, we can all compare people, can't we? I think if certain players hadn't come through the youth setup, and I think you could say Lingard, Rashford, McTominay, and maybe a couple of others, if they weren't from the youth setup, I think they'd be gone as well. I think if McTominay had come in from Swansea like Dan James, I'm not so sure he'd still be here. But there is a positive side to that. We are a club that's had a youth product in our matchday squad since the 1930s. So on one hand, you can say, well, if he wasn't part of the youth setup, he wouldn't be playing. But we have to have players part of our youth setup because that's what we do. That is what we do. So I think it's a moot point, really, actually, isn't it? Is Maguire part of the leaks? Can't help but assume he is part of it along with other English players like Rashford, says Frank. I don't know, mate. Well, I do know, but I don't know. And I certainly am not going to sit here and tell you about leaks because ultimately I'll probably get sued and it's not my job to do it anyway because I'm not the person they're leaking it to, whoever these people are. Unfortunately, and Paul Ince mentioned this on the morning show, didn't he? Even back in his day, you have relationships with journalists that you can give them a bit of information if you want to. And that's always been the case. I don't have a problem with players having relationships with journalists. What I do have a problem is with what they leak. Team news for me is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. There's been all sorts of rumours over the years about coaches and players who've been leaking it. And people are leaking it. And the reason I know people are leaking it, and I've never been leaked to team news by any United player, so I can categorically say that. And I wouldn't be comfortable if I was. But if you look at United team leaks over the last 5 years, it's not one person who's getting it. It seems to me every season it's you, you're getting it now. Oh, it's you two getting it now. Oh, you're getting it now. You're getting it now. I mean, Jonathan Schrager used to get it. It doesn't really mention it now, And that doesn't mean he's getting it from a player either. He might be getting it from somebody who's getting it. You know what I mean? But these team leaks have been going on for bloody ages. And it's not one player or coach doing it to one source. There's loads of different ones, which means we've got multiple leaks. And when you're leaking team news or you're undermining a manager, that's when you become an arsehole. That's when you become a problem. I accept players are human beings and they're going to have conversations with media outlets and journalists, and certain information I ain't got a problem with. But team secrets and undermining your manager, that's when it crosses the line to me. And we have been doing it. And look, the problem as well is that social media makes it worse, because, you know, there are players on Instagram who are, you know, it's very easy to slide into your DMs for a footballing reason and start having a conversation with people and that. And players are just like anybody else. They've got a lot of spare time. And, you know, maybe they get manipulated. Maybe they do it willingly. But there's too much at United. Way too much. Abraham, thank you very much for joining the members club. Please like and subscribe. Says Renate. Yeah, thank you very much. We're nearly at 2,000 likes. Phil Jones probably does deserve to keep his place on Monday. Nikki says, these players need to accept they will face the best version of every team they come up against. You need to match them with intensity. And I mean, Nikki makes a good point. That's something that United have lost along the way. I think it was very unique of Sir Alex Ferguson. Joe Rogan Bridge, says Mark Bosens. Yeah, you know, you have these conversations with Incy, and, you know, we've spoken before about Wimbledon, who were complete and utter arseholes. Robert McCormack says, did you work at Muller? Says Nigel Green. I don't know whether Robert's on tonight. Yeah, you know, Wimbledon in the early 90s used to get a lot of points because they were bullies. Nothing wrong with that. They used to rough teams up. And actually, Bolton used to do it to Arsenal under Wenger as well. Bolton always used to give Arsenal a terrible game, even when Arsenal were brilliant, because they used to rough them up. We used to rough Arsenal up as well. They hated it. But that's why I think we were able to go toe-to-toe with so many challengers, whether it was Chelsea under Mourinho, whether it was Wenger under Arsenal, Arsenal under Wenger, because we could rough it up. And that came from Sir Alex. I remember when we used to play that Wimbledon team in the early 90s, and, you know, Vinnie Jones would go and try and chop Roy Keane or chop Cantona, and we'd give it back. And then we'd beat them with ability. And that 94 team of United was basically what the class of 92 learned from. And then they took it into 99, and then they taught people like Rooney and Ronaldo in the noughties, and they took it into 08. We've lost it. We've got some good players, but they don't get what was just said there, that every team wants to beat Manchester United. When United roll into Carrow Road or St James's Park or, you know, wherever else, we're the big ticket, and they're up for it. And unfortunately, we're inconsistent because our players just can't do it. You've got to go and fight the opposition and then let your talent come through. And we don't. We don't do it. And that's why every midfield fancies their chances against ours, because it starts in the midfield. Mark, what do you think of an average pundit like Trevor Sinclair blaming Ronaldo for Rashford's poor performances? He's an idiot, mate. He used to be a decent footballer, scored a couple of really good overhead kicks, but as a pundit, he's absolute trash. He literally spouts crap. He's absolutely useless. I think he's a wind-up, to be honest. He's absolute shite. How has Ronaldo got anything to do with Rashford when Rashford was playing badly before Ronaldo even came? So, you know, I presume that's on TalkSport, and it's done so that you listen to it. They've got a habit. Gabby Agbonlahore's another one. Jamie O'Hara. They're brought in to speak shit so that you watch it, because you can't believe how much shit they're talking. It's a tactic, isn't it? Welcome to United Stand members, says Vicky. And there's a good question. Where would you rank United's problem now from 1 to 5, says Philip? Biggest problem is we're halfway through a season trying to have a rebuild. Well, no, I'm not ranking them. That's one of the problems. The biggest problem is the board, and always will be the board. The players are a huge problem because there is a divide and they don't understand what it is to be a United player. I think only David De Gea and Cristiano Ronaldo really do, because they've actually won things here. 4 is that there are teams being run better than us, and I don't include Liverpool, Chelsea and Man City, who are meant to be the competitors this year, but they're clear. I'd now say Arsenal, Tottenham and West Ham are better than us. So we've got teams that have got momentum that shouldn't be anywhere near us that are, which goes back to trying to fix it halfway through a season. And then we've bought in 3 really good signings in Sancho, Varane, used them. Varane is one of the world's best centre-backs with no partner. Sancho is one of the most exciting young creative players in Europe who's been completely mismanaged. And Ronaldo is one of the best strikers in the world who's not getting any service. So there's 5 things. And there's probably a lot more as well. Anyway, I could go on and on and on. I'm going to the game on Monday, taking 2 times half-day holiday to go. I'm really hoping for a half-decent turnout. I think it will be a good game on Monday night, Daniel. I'm looking forward to it. I think we really need it, and I think we will get a reaction. But there has to be a reaction. If you can't react to what's happened this week, then we've got no hope. Please do check out the link in the video description. It's a new Going for Goldbridge, which is on my channel. Subscribe to that channel if you like it. But talking about what's next for United Stand this year, and other things as well, but that's on that. Very interesting video. Give it a click in the link video description, and subscribe to the channel. Actually, that's a good channel. I do like it, and it's sort of my therapy channel where I do cooking and all sorts. So give it a watch. But yeah, I do talk about the year ahead for United Stand, and also you can get involved. So that link's in the video description. Have a good evening, day, or whatever you're doing. We're back tomorrow with a morning show. Then I'm doing a preview at 2 o'clock live for the Villa game. And we'll have an 8 o'clock show tomorrow as well. So thanks everyone for watching. Take care, and I'll speak to you all in a bit.